Hello, I'm Noir Nerd, and in this video I'm just going to show the process I went through using Meshy.ai to take an image that I'd made previously with Photoshop of a static face TV, which is actually a person, which is based on a nightmare I had a long time ago. I generated 4 models there, which you would have just seen, and I'm going to go through various forms of experiments that I did. I wanted to experiment just to see what I could do, well, what I would generate for a start, but also what sort of body horror potential you could have for creating the models. So this is the first model that I selected, and then I chose the triangle topology, and I think I actually chose high for the poly count, I think, from what I remember. And I was actually pretty surprised by how good this result was. Obviously you've got a few weird little glitches here and there, but all in all it's actually fairly accurate, especially considering the high contrast of the image. And then I wanted to try animating this. So basically with Meshy.ai you can actually, it's got an auto rigger a bit like Mixamo. This model doesn't have loads of symmetry though, so obviously it ended up being a bit jank, which will be funny. We'll go through that in a minute. Some of the animations work, but very, very varying degrees of success. I turned off the symmetry mode, but I think if I'd left the symmetry mode on it would have been even worse. Lined up the points. It's fairly intuitive process, to be honest, with Meshy.ai to do that. And then lined them up as best as I could on the model that I had, the render of that model that I just generated. I went through that, but the results, as you can see in this next part, are quite funny. So this just reminded me of Liam Gallagher more than anything else, to be honest. Like a weird Liam Gallagher strut. Surprisingly, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I thought it would be a lot worse. But because he's a sitting down character, a lot of the preset animations you get in Meshy.ai. But yeah, it just reminded me of Liam Gallagher strutting around. But a little bit janky. You've got the coat sort of crossing through the mesh there. Okay, next up we've got Heroin Junkie, just zoned out with his hands all messed up. So that did really go wrong. Again, just reminded me of train spotting and a junkie just being strung out. In a way that could work for some weird game or something, but obviously there's a lot of mesh morphing with the hands there. The hands seem to be the main problem area. And then yeah, just ran through a series of these animations, which you can see here. That's just the standard running one. But again, you've got that area with the hands, I think because they're clasped together, cause certain issues. Now the actual animation auto rigger in Meshy.ai is pretty good for what it is. I mean, that's a pretty difficult thing to do, but then yeah, you get, obviously with more complicated weird models you get all sorts of unpredictable results like that, which looks just like a mess really, of course. So that was amusing for about 2 seconds basically. Just reminded me of a dancing crab or something. So yeah, just made a weird mutant dancing crab there with a TV for a head. Again, just train spotting mode. Just looks like he's having a bad time, about to throw up. I'd say I'm actually pretty impressed with the actual accuracy and the quality of how the models have improved over time. The animation is still very hit or miss though, especially when you're working with non-typical figures. I mean, this is one area where I don't think AI is really up to the job still. This is a comparison of the original photograph. So that's a photograph I created with Photoshop. It didn't take very long. I just actually used AI for that as well. I used a bit of the generative fill tool, and that came out right. And then yeah, so that was a slightly higher. I think I did it on the ultra settings, and that one turned out actually. This is the ultra settings, sorry, and that's with the lighting in there as well. So it's much more crisper, but you still get these areas of weird artifacts. Overall, though, this is pretty good. It was, and we've also got a little bit of the wireframe there if you want to look at that. But this was almost usable, I think. But then I suppose the thing with all this AI stuff is this would be useful for prototyping, But then if I wanted to do like custom animations, I'd be really, really very stock. I don't know what an animator would think if you passed in this model. Again, I actually don't know because I'm not that expert an animator. I like how Meshy gives you a bit of a starting point, but yeah, not exactly sure how that would pan out in the pass to an animator. I found out the Meshy has this pretty coul thing where you can do a transition. It reminded me of The Fly, actually, funnily enough, the film with Jeff Goldblum. Reminded me of some of the graphics from that. So that was quite an interesting little feature, which I hadn't used before on Meshy.ai. I actually pay for Meshy.ai, I completely forgot, that's why I'm using it again. And then yeah, this turned out pretty interesting. So I retextured the model with a prompt for like add like glowing blue, and this is where I decided to like experiment a little bit more with sort of body horror. Reminded me of the Tools video for Stinkfist, the face on there, very creepy. But the actual texture looks really weird when it's actually in light mode. So when you actually have the environmental lighting, you can see all the gloss. It looks really strange. So I was trying to tweak that a bit, see, because it actually looks pretty good without the all the environmental lighting. But then when I switched it to the other mode, it just looked very strange with the gloss. But yeah, it reminded me a lot of Tools videos. So I tweaked those settings a little bit just to experiment. I'm not really experimenting with it that much. The roughness, the smoothness, you get this almost like weird, yeah, the shininess, the gloss, just probably too much, looks artificial, right? Found a balance which seemed sort of okay, and then just left that one, I think, for a while. But yeah, this variation, one of the things I found with doing this AI, it's not really modelling, it's prompting your AI for generate models, but it's quite interesting because when you get unexpected results. This one reminded me of Mr. Freeze from again, so that was degradation, I think, in many respects. I think it went back a bit there. It definitely reminded me of Mr. Freeze from Batman. Again, you can get these variations and looks, but it does, again, like with all generative AI, you reach a level of hallucination where apart from creating weird stuff, it doesn't really become, it's not really a useful thing in the workflow. And then I made a little bit of I think this is the ultra settings with quads, and in terms of the textures, this turned out the best in terms of not as many glitches. It looks passable. But yeah, but then when I actually turned to the lighting mode, look how all that crunch you've got there. So just that sort of ruined it for me, hence the disappointed sigh. Still, pretty interesting that we can actually do this now. I mean, imagine doing it. You couldn't do this 5 years ago. And now here's the zenith of the body horror that I managed to create. So I was actually quite pleased with this one. This was just, again, changed it. We're doing a retexturing and it looks really creepy. Reminded me a bit of Slipknot, as well as maybe some Cronenberg type imagery there, the television. Sort of a mix of those two references, I suppose. So yeah, Slipknot there, Iowa-based metal band. David Cronenberg is a little bit of a still there from Videodrome, the classic Cronenberg flick with television sets doing freaky things. But yeah, this actually had something to it, I think. It had that sense of eeriness, and which I was trying to... Well, I wasn't trying to do anything in this, really. It was an experiment. But again, you can... I mean, I did actually cut a lot out as well. Then I just started rendering it again. But the animation for this was very much more mixed. So we get these really weird... Some of them were like... You had some happy accidents, so this one wouldn't really be usable. That possibly would be, but again, only for like a really weird character. It looks like he's falling to bits with his intestines hanging out or something, which is not by design. It's just the vertices, I think, pulling and the rigging being a bit incorrect, basically, in the auto rigger. But you do get these like weird little happy accidents, I suppose. Not this one especially, but yeah, it's just this dude. Obviously it looks jank, really. And again, this is still one of the problems with working with AI in general. Is you getting the consistency of result is, yeah. Again, like I like this one for pure weirdness factor, but obviously it's a result of. So this is like, as a piece of art, I actually find it quite interesting, gruesome, eerie, strange, uncanny. But you can imagine if you had to put that into our workflow for a game and needed the animation to be consistent and everything else, again, you're going to have issues. So this is where I'm not 100% sure it's up for scratch. I mean, I'm finding it interesting doing these experiments though with just like what kind of weird arty type results you can generate from Meshy.ai. And this, yeah, it probably would fit in as some weird character in a game, possibly with the animation looping. Maybe something like, reminds me a bit of the Master from Fallout or something like that. But again, it comes back to, and I do want to clarify actually, like the reason I'm not really doing these videos because I think AI is going to replace 3D models and animators. I think it's quite the opposite. Honestly, like again, these are just all the results that we're getting from the. And now again, it looks really weird. It looks strange, but and I don't know. I mean, maybe when I become more familiar with the workflows of Meshy.ai, I will be able to achieve more or less anything. But so far, I've not, and I have put a few hours of just experimenting into it. I mean, this looks almost like an alien bursting out of someone's chest or something. This is the character overall, though, that I think had the most body horror weirdness to it. But it was very different from the actual original image, which was like a static TV screen. So interesting to see how the retexturing has come on quite a bit, so to the point where you can actually more or less get fairly consistent results. So that's interesting to see. And to be fair to Meshy.ai, it's fairly affordable. I pay £15 a month for it, and you can get some nice little results, definitely for environmental. And then finally we had this, which reminds me of that scene from that weird Thomas the Tank Engine animation online, actually, a bit, the end bit. Well, no spoilers, but if you've seen it, you'll know what I mean. It's Shed 17. Anyway, we'll do a little bit of a summary now, and then I'll end this video. So yeah, I found it pretty. That's the original image. That's what I finally ended up with in terms of my experimentation that was of any worthwhile showing. And one thing I do like about using the system like this is you can have like weird, unpredictable results. So you can go off on a tangent, which for somebody like me, I like going off on a tangent anyway when I'm doing artwork and else. So I found that quite interesting. And as an activity in itself, it's definitely enjoyable to try and make these models as optimized as possible and tweak them. It's very different from obviously if you're doing something in Blender, and again you're losing the artistic and technical side of it because you're essentially just prompting. And I mean, I feel less guilty about that because I did actually produce the 2D image, but again, I did that with the help of some AI as well. But yeah, I don't think anything can ever replace a truly professional 3D artist, obviously, but this is an interesting activity to do if you want to experiment with some prototypal 3D models. That's basically my summary. Cheers, like and subscribe.